Hello and a very warm welcome viewers. You're watching the Question Hour show from the Parliament House complex, the show where we bring all the important unstart questions asked by the members of the upper house and the response given by the government. I'm Kriti Mishra and joining me is my colleague Rajat K.
Thanks Kriti, and thanks to your viewers for watching this edition of Question Hour. Well, Question Hour is an important tool in parliamentary democracy where the members from the opposition, also from the ruling party, gets to question the government on the policies and the schemes. Now, broadly speaking, there are three categories of questions: start, unstart and the short notice ones.
Well, the start ones are those questions of which answers are given orally on the floor of the House by respective ministers. The unstart questions are those questions of which the answers are given in written format. And our show focuses on all the important unstart questions. Of course, in this edition, we'll get the questions asked during the first part of the 253rd session of the Rajya Sabha. But how are these questions asked and how are they answered? Here's a small presentation for our viewers.
A member submits his or her questions at least 15 days before the office of Rajya Sabha chairman. The Rajya Sabha Secretariat chooses the questions to be answered through a draw of ballots. Separate ballots are held for start and unstart questions. The questions are scrutinized for admissibility under the current rules and precedents. Questions are disallowed if they are not in order. Advance copies of chosen questions are sent to ministry or departments concerned. The ministry concerns collect information to prepare the reply. The minister concerned reply to start questions on the floor of the House and provides written answers to unstart questions. Up to 160 unstart questions are listed every day in a separate list. Well, there you saw how these questions are asked. So Kriti, now it's time to begin the show. Well, the first question of this edition of the show is from member Rakesh Sinha from Ministry of Home Affairs. The member saw details of the recommendations of commissions concerning the performance of police.
Well, in order to improve the functioning of the police, the union government has set up various committees and commissions. And of course, in the answer, the details are given, and this response has been given by MOS Home Affairs, T. Kishan Reddy. And he goes on to say that the government has set up National Police Commission 1977, Ribeiro Commission in 1998, Padmanabhan Committee 2000, Manimath Committee on Criminal Justice 2002. Further, the government constituted a review committee headed by R.S. Moshre to review the recommendations of the previous commissions and committees on police reforms in December 2004. The committee submitted its report in March 2005. The committee shortlisted 49 recommendations, including 2 recommendations, that is, Orderly System and Establishment of State Security Commission. The recommendations of the review committee have also been sent to state governments and UTs for taking appropriate action. The list of the states and UTs that have reported implementation of these 2 recommendations has also been provided in the answer by the government. Police reforms are an ongoing process. Police is also a state subject falling in list 2 of the state list of the 7th schedule of the Constitution in India. It is primarily the responsibility of the state government or the UD administrations to implement police reforms. The centre also issues advisories to the states for bringing in requisite reforms in the police administration to meet the expectations of the people. As per the data on police organizations compiled by Bureau of Police Research Development, the ratio of police personnel per 1 lakh people is 195.39 as per sanction strength as on 1st of January 2020 and 155.78 as per actual strength. The organizational structure of the police forces varies from country to country, as do the functions and tasks assigned to them. Many countries do not have central armed police forces. In addition, the number of policemen required is dependent on several variables like volume of crime, societal structures, use of technology and local problems. There are no universal standards or United Nations recommendations to assess the optimal level of police force in any country. Joining us on the Question Hour show is Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Rakesh Sinha. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV and thank you so much for joining us. Sir, during the first part of the ongoing 253rd session of the Rajya Sabha, you'd asked a very pertinent question on police reforms. Now, the government has given a detailed reply, a comprehensive reply. What is your take, sir?
You know, police reform is awaited for a long time. In 1977-78, Dharmveera Commission was formed. Since then, there has been consistent efforts. Particularly, this government is very serious about the reform, but earlier that, 3 committees have been formed. Ribero Committee in 1998, Padma Bhaiya Committee in 2002, and then Mali Math Committee. All 3 committees have suggested certain things about the reform. And 2005, ultimately, a committee was formed, and that Musre committee, that committee has recommended 49 recommendations from earlier. They reviewed all the committee's report. And I think there are 3 things which are very pertinent. One, that ratio between the people and the constable. Because at present, the given strength is 195 per 1 lakh population. And actual strength is 155 per 1 lakh population. It should be more than almost 210. Second thing is that constables training, in the given circumstances under the police reform, we require that constables should be trained in view of the emerging crime, pattern of crime, and also the human rights. Constables lack the training of human rights, therefore many questions emerges after the conflict between the people and the police, and that becomes liability for the state. Therefore, I think that it should be in priority of the Indian state. I think this government is very serious about this, and in the Home Standing Committee we are deliberating about the police reform.
So the government also talks about various committees and commissions that were set up, and of course the implementation of the recommendations by the respective state governments.
You know, the government has circulated these recommendations to all the states. One of the recommendations is the formation of the State Security Commission, but many states have not formed. The reason is that if you are not serious about the formation of the State Security Commission, then no systematic reform could be done in such states. Because the pattern of crime is changing, the people's aspiration is changing, and the constables and their training, their weapons, their infrastructures remain almost stagnant. Therefore, the recommendation, these 49 recommendations are likely to be implemented in these states, as central government has issued many circulars to these states and suggested them and requested them to implement. Primary thing is that every state should immediately form the State Security Commission. This is very much required, and this is essentially required because this commission, you cannot move ahead as far as constables training is concerned, as far as human rights is concerned, as far as prevention of the crimes are concerned.
Sir, any specific demand?
You know, there are 3 suggestions I have for the government. One, that pattern of training of the policemen, both the officers and constables, should drastically change. The earlier commission, 2008 Dharmveera Commission, it has almost 40 years. So its recommendations are also not likely to be pertinent to the present circumstance in 2020. So a new commission should be formed. That commission should, in time-bound manner, suggest the reforms in the police, and that reform should concentrate on 3 aspects. One, the training of the constables, given the mandatory training of the human rights and orientation, a regular orientation course of the constables and the policemen. Second thing is that since the pattern of crime is changing, so policemen should also have some kind of experience in the other states. Suppose 20% constables of Uttar Pradesh should have experience of the realities of the Assam, and 20% constable of Assam have training of the training and the experience realities of the Tamil Nadu. This cross-state experiences would give them a broader vision and cosmopolitan vision how to stop the crime, how to deal with the people, and it will be an evolution of the police system. Third suggestion is that at the level of the officers, there are certain stagnation. That stagnation should be broken, and the transfer and posting of the policemen should be just through 2 ways. One is their report card, other is the social auditing. Without social auditing, if you are doing that, then it is injustice both with the system as well as the policemen.
All right, on that note, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us, sir. And moving on to the next question, and this one has been asked by member Mallikarjun Kharge, and this question is to the Ministry of Women and Child Development. And the member has raised a very pertinent issue of objectionable comments against women on social media platforms.
Well, Kriti, this is an important issue and government has framed guidelines now to address the issue of violence against women, especially on the platforms of social media. The reply to this query was given by Women and Child Development Minister Smriti Irani. The minister says steps have been taken to spread awareness, issues of alert, advisories, training of law enforcement agencies, improving cyber forensic facilities, including properly educate them on gender sensitization. These steps help to prevent such cases and expedited investigation. Ministry of Women and Child Development also has dedicated email to address and resolve the issue of women, including hateful conduct and stalking on social media, including Twitter. The Information Technology Act 2000 has provisions regarding cheating by personation, violation of privacy, publishing or transmitting obscene materials in electronic form, publishing or transmitting material containing sexually explicit act in electronic form, publishing or transmitting material depicting children in sexually explicit act in electronic form. Rule 3 of Information Technology Rules 2011 provides for an obligation for intermediaries to inform users of computer resources not to host, display, upload, modify, publish, transmit, update or share any information that is grossly harmful, harassing, blasphemous, defamatory, obscene, pornographic, pedophilic, libellous, invasive of another's privacy, including taking steps to terminate such hateful accounts from social media. Ministry of Home Affairs implement a scheme, namely Cybercrime Prevention Against Women and Children, funded under Nirbhaya Fund, under which online cybercrime reporting portal has been launched to enable public to report complaints pertaining to rape, gang rape, imageries of sexually explicit content, child pornography, child sexual abuse material. This portal facilitates the public to lodge all types of cybercrimes with special focus on cybercrime against women and children. It is a centralized mechanism for reporting incidents of all types of cybercrimes and allow decentralized dealing of each complaint by concerned state and union territory, district cyber cell or concerned law enforcement officer as per crime jurisdiction and provisions of law. Besides, the toll-free number has also been made operational for citizens to assist them in lodging online complaints in their own language. National Crime Record Bureau has been notified as an agency of Government of India to issue notices to intermediaries under Section 79(3)(b) of the IT Act for removal of child pornography, rape and gang rape content. Police and public order are state subjects as per the Constitution of India. States and UTs are primarily responsible for prevention, detection, investigation and prosecution of crimes through their law enforcement machinery. These law encroachment machinery agencies under government of respective states, UTs, conduct surveillance and take legal actions as per provisions of law against the criminals misusing the social media, including Twitter account, who regularly post horribly misogynistic comments, including rape threats to women on social media. So that was elaborate reply from Ministry of Women and Child Development on steps taken so as to address the issue of violence against women on social media platforms. Moving on to next question that was asked by members Subhash Chandra Bose Pillai and Parimal Nathwani. The members saw details whether Tribal Cooperative Market Development Federation of India is collaborating with various ministries and departments for GI tagging of tribal products.
Well, TriFed is collaborating with various ministries and departments in order to ensure GI tagging for various tribal products, and this response has been given by MOS Tribal Affairs, Renuka Singh. She talks about the collaborations that are being pursued for the promotion and marketing of GI products. Now, these include Labasna is organizing a GI Mahotsav in collaboration with Ministry of Culture and TriFed. Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Textiles have also been requested to partner in the same for promotion and marketing of GI products, and also with an idea to sensitize the trainee officers on GI. The GI Mahotsav is scheduled to be held from 4th to 5th of March 2021 at the Labasna premises. TriFed has collaborated with the Ministry of External Affairs for promotion of tribal GI products in Indian missions abroad and foreign missions in India. In the ongoing Adi Mahotsav of TriFed at Delhi Haat, with the observance of Diplomats' Day, various tribal GI products are to be showcased before diplomats of foreign missions in India. TriFed is also collaborating with Ministry of Culture to open GI-specific outlets at heritage locations at zonal cultural centers. TriFed is selling 50 GI products sourced from tribals and is making efforts for the registration of suppliers of each product as authorized suppliers with the approval of competent authorities. TriFed is also working towards the identification of new products for GI tagging. TriFed is taking steps for the promotion of geographical indication under the Atmanirbhar Abhiyan and Vocal for Local initiatives through its network of 128 retail outlets and exhibitions. And moving on to the next question, and this one has been asked by member Sushil Kumar Gupta, and the question is to the Ministry of Textiles. And the member has sought details on exports of apparels and textiles from India.
The reply to this query is given by Minister of Textiles Smriti Irani. In the reply, the minister answers in affirmative, saying that Indian textile sector is 6th largest exporter of textiles and apparels in the world. The share of India's textiles and apparels export in mercantile export is 11% for the year 2019-20. US market is the top market for Indian apparel exports. Taking a major step to boost exports, government has recently decided to extend the benefit of scheme for remission of duties and taxes on exported products to all export goods with effect from 1st January 2021. Cabinet has approved production-linked incentive scheme, that is PLI scheme, in 10 key sectors for enhancing India's manufacturing capabilities, enhancing exports. Now, M&F segment and technical textiles are included among 10 key sectors with approved financial outlay of Rs 10,683 crore over 5 years period. Accordingly, this ministry is formulating a scheme to promote identified MMF apparel and technical textile lines to capture substantial share in global trade, including US. Union Budget Announcement 2021-22 include launch of Mega Integrated Textile Region and Apparel Park Scheme to enable the textile industry to become globally competitive, attract large investments and boost employment generation. 7 textile parks will be established over 3 years. This will create world-class infrastructures with plug-and-play facilities to enable and create global champions in export. Well, moving on to the next question of this edition of show, that was asked by member GVL Narasimha Rao from Ministry of Planning. The member saw details of the organizational structure and staff position of Development Monitoring and Evaluation Officer under Niti Aayog.
Well, there's a comprehensive and detailed reply given by the Statistics and Program Implementation Minister, Rao Indrajit Singh. And he goes on to say that the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office was constituted on 18 September 2015 by merging the erstwhile Program Evaluation Organization and the Independent Evaluation Office and notified as an attached office under the aegis of Niti Aayog. It is headed by the Director General, who is equivalent to Additional Secretary to the Government of India and reports to the Chief Executive Officer, Niti Aayog. DG is supported by 1 Joint Secretary, Admin and Finance, and 4 Deputy Director Generals. In order to have complete functional autonomy, a separate budgetary allocation has been exclusively provided. The staff position of Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office has also been given in the annexures. The government also says that to consider continuation of umbrella centrally sponsored schemes in the 15th Finance Commission cycle, DMEO was mandated by Department of Expenditure to undertake third-party evaluations of 28 UCSS. DMEO undertook the evaluation of the centrally sponsored schemes under these 28 through following sector evaluation packages. Now, these include agriculture, animal husbandry and fisheries, women and child development, human resource development, urban transformation, rural development, drinking water and sanitization, jobs and skills, water resources, environment and forests, social inclusion, law and order and justice delivery. The evaluation studies have been undertaken with the support of external consultants who were selected through an open tender advertisement process. Evaluation of scheme or program is a continuous process, and DMEO will continue to undertake evaluations as per need and in consultation with related stakeholders. For concurrent monitoring of schemes and programs in coordination with around 68 ministries or departments, outcome monitoring framework for central sector and centrally sponsored schemes having combined annual outlay of around 10 lakh crore. The objective of this framework is to strengthen the outcome-based monitoring of schemes or programs of the Government of India for the effective management of limited public resources and to facilitate their deeper, broader impact. The framework has been tabled in Parliament every year along with the respective union budget since 2019-20 for schemes having an outlay of 500 crore or more. Framework for rest schemes is laid in Parliament by respective ministries or departments along with their detailed demands for grants. It also puts in place nearly 5,000 key output and outcome indicators for around 530 outlets. It facilitates to monitor the progress or performance of schemes on the annual targets set by respective ministries or departments. Further, to facilitate the monitoring of schemes, the organization has also developed an online dashboard wherein the targets are captured and periodic progress is updated by respective ministries or departments. This enables all stakeholders to monitor the performance of schemes. In addition, for continuation of central sector schemes in the 15th Finance Commission cycle, all ministries or departments were mandated by the DOE to undertake third-party evaluations of their respective schemes. And now moving on to the last question of this edition of the Question Hour show, and this one has been asked by member Syed Nasir Hussain, and this question is to the Prime Minister's office, and he has inquired details about the pending cases with the Central Bureau of Investigation.
The reply to this query is given by MOS Prime Minister's office, Jitendra Singh. In the reply, the minister says that as on 31st of December 2019, CBI had 711 number of regular cases pending investigation for over an year, whereas the figure of such cases as on 31st December was 588 cases. CBI investigates complex and voluminous cases against public servants, firms, companies, banks, private persons, which at times pertain to very old transactions or incidents. Many of these cases involve investigations spread over several states and UTs of the country. Moreover, cases also remain pending for considerable time for want of expert opinion, execution report of letter rogatories, mutual legal assistance treaty and others that are sent for collecting evidence as well as for investigation in foreign countries. And lastly, the recent COVID-19 pandemic situation has also adversely affected pace of investigation in cases, despite CBI making all-out efforts to dispose of these cases on priority. Well, that's it in this edition of Question Hour. Thanks for watching RSTV.
Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television and stay healthy as well.